I could feel for him.
Because some time ago you would be getting calls.
Yeah.
In fact, the people who know you will call you.
Yeah.
Your
and those
people
who don't know you, who can get your number,
you.
will call you. And those who know somebody who knows somebody who knows somebody who also call. So when you see those things happening, you can feel for them and you start guessing what the problem is. But you go then you start reminding yourself, calm down.
Well, we thank God for small mercies. And good to have you in the studio.
I think any mercy is small.
And no, see, God doesn't do small things, but whether the mercy to seek a miracle. But I want to
girlfriend here, mercy.
You are clearly not under as much stress as you were some months ago. But I want to get into the ECG conversation. But I know that, you have a pretty decent international trade, appreciation for international trade. So I want to sample your thoughts on what do you think this tariff situation means for us as a country or the continent. I mean, is there a silver lining at all?
Truth of the matter is, I see as we have to start bracing for the major impact. It's not easy to say we should trade amongst ourselves. Where are we going to start from? We never did. Are we now going to try and put things together in the next 2 to 3 months or 6 months or even in a year? It's not going to be, as always, a hekata. Like, it's going to be funny for some time.
Okay.
But the biggest thing that everybody doesn't seem to turn their mind to, and I start to feel for the government, especially the president and the finance ministers, the pressure that's going to come on the macroeconomic instability is going to be crazy. For example, before Uncle Donald did this tariff thing, what did he do back at home? He increased interest rates on dollars, on bank accounts. So with this tariff thing, what is he telling everybody? Stop manufacturing outside, come back home and
come back home.
What does that say? He's calling back all his money across the world. So what's going to happen to the dollars that you're holding back in Ghana here? There's going to be a pressure on it. Even you holding dollars here will now feel like your dollars are safer back there, even with a measly maybe 2 or 3% interest rate. So what are you going to do? You're going to start finding a way to work with companies over there. But it's also going to be it's a two-edged sword. It's not going to be easy for Uncle Donald too.
Because no man is an island.
Yes, because most of his electricity he takes from Canada. There was also a 25% hike by the Canadians on his electricity. It's going to affect Americans. How soon this whole thing can balance itself out, and how soon we can get to a common ground, or how soon the people around Donald can get him to see reality, is the question. But in the interim, let's just say you are playing the song.
Well, thanks very much for your thoughts on this. So we're here because we've had a couple of conversations with the current minister for Energy and Green Transition, Mr. John Jinapor.
Yes.
And there was this rather startling revelation that some containers had mysteriously disappeared from the port. These containers belong to your former employer. A committee was then set up to look into this, and findings or a report has been issued. Now, this committee was made up of Professor Innocent Senyor Kwesi Akwa. He's an associate professor of procurement and supply chain management at the University of Cape Coast. He served as chairman, and yes, and Mr. Noble Yaoche Adonu is a managing partner at AKA and Partners. They're chartered accountants. He served as a member. The other members are Mrs. Vivian Abla Kali, a procurement and supply chain professional, and Mr. Abdul Rahim Swala, a Chief Revenue Officer, Investigations at the Ghana Revenue Authority. And the Secretary to this committee, also a member, Ms. Georgette Emefafuga, Esquire. She is with Liberty Law Consult. Now, the report provides a very interesting executive summary. The scope of work was to essentially help us understand what led to the holding up of 2,500 containers at the Tema port, and to confirm the contracts that resulted in the demurrage of these containers, and also establish the values of the contract of these demurrages, and also examine ECG's procurement practices, procedures, and processes used for the acquisition of these goods and services. And last but not the least, review ECG's procurement contracts for the supply of goods and services, and then submit a report on the findings on the above. Advise the Honourable Minister on optimal procurement practices to prevent inefficiencies and wastage in the future. If you ask me, in my lay mind, these are pretty decent scope objectives, or the scope of work given this committee. The committee set about to do its work, and they did speak to a number of people, and then they provided some key findings. Now, some of the key findings are excessive procurement and all sorts. But Mr. Mahama, first of all, I would like for you to walk us through when, or rather, the process of procuring goods and services such as the ones in these containers that has become a matter for great conversation.
Sure. My comments on these containers are simple, and I want to just engage you for us to have a discussion.
Okay.
Help me. Did the minister say the containers were in the custody of ECG?
Well, according to the report, it at the port, Tema port. Hold up
At Tema port.
Yeah.
So the
container hold up at Tema port.
So does that clearly means that the containers are not in the full custody of ECG, right?
Yes.
I'm saying this because if the containers were in the full custody of ECG and were missing, that's a different conversation. You can throw whatever stones you want to throw at ECG because they had full control. They were supposed to exercise security over the containers. But now, we joke with a lot of things in this country. GPHA is a security zone. It's run by, there's Marine Police there, there's National Security there, and the National Security, you know all the ambits that fit there, NIB, all of them.
Yeah.
There's customs. It's a customs zone. It's a security zone. So why the hype that ECG, to the extent that people are mentioning my name, which brings me to this report where I feel slighted by.
Why?
I was never called.
Really?
I was never called and asked my opinion about this report.
No, wait. As the former managing director of ECG,
my name is
not
mentioned in that report.
Yeah, but you were not.
Accusations leveled against me in that report. I was never, ever. And you mentioned the people that made up the committee. There's a lawyer on the committee.
In fact, I think two of them.
There are two lawyers on the committee. They didn't deem it.
But you see,
and others have the school of thought that probably they are trying to say that this has nothing to do with you. But you know, when you're going to make adverse findings, whenever adverse findings are made, at least even hear me out. If you hear me out and you put in the report that we had, for example, for excuse me, one of my friends will be laughing by now. Excuse me, if we listen to this in inverted commas, this idiot gave us these answers. We don't like the idiot's answers. This is what we think. Everybody knows. But as the report stands now, it looks like Well, it's easy for anybody to assume that. You know, when I said it, you were like, you were not called?
Well, because the list of activities that the committee performed is listed. The approach to their work. The very first thing is that they engaged directors of ECG to understand the procurement procedure in a company. As managing director of all the directors, you were not spoken to.
But it happened actually after I left. So let's say they engaged the sitting directors. So if the sitting directors have made comments to the effect that it affects a former director directly, you choose not to directly or even indirectly solicit the opinion, idea, understanding of the said former managing director before you put out the report.
Interesting. Well, so you weren't spoken to.
No.
But you have been mentioned in a number of things. But we'll get to that in a moment.
One newspaper said I have been fingered.
Well, yeah, one could say that. There are a number of key findings, and I just want us to go over some of the key findings.
You are about to do something that I have done my possible best to stay away from. I said, since they decided not to grant me audience, I am not speaking or answering to anything in this document.
But you would agree that
I can speak a little bit of Chief.
Oh yes.
Do I know what the person is? Just make say tradition to me.
Yeah.
So do I know what's behind door number 2 or door number 3? So I should give the person all the ammunition that the person needs to come and fight me back. When in fairness, we could have sat back. Because yesterday, the minister says he's written to the NIB. I am here. I haven't gone anywhere. I haven't left this country. Look, what most people don't realize is that I have never schooled abroad. Some people think, wow, you should have. Yeah, I've never schooled abroad. My education, I started here in Ghana, from St. Teresa School to Achimota School to Legon, then to law school. I have 2 first degrees, and then I did my bar. I have never schooled abroad. I don't have anywhere to go. If you uproot me now, drop me in Togo, I'll suffer. Drop me in, I'll suffer. My everything is here. I grew up in Fadama. I live 3 streets from the chief imam. My favorite football pitch is the Fadama football pitch. When I walk down the streets, it's like, you know that show, the US show, Cheers. Everybody wants to go where everybody knows your name. Yeah. That's the kind of environment I grew up in. I don't have anywhere to go. So, and I came to serve. And I've finished serving, and I don't want to account for my stewardship. Oh, come on.
But the report is saying that during your time, there was over procurement.
You see, the report failed to take a lot of factors into consideration. So why should I sit in the media space and tell them what they failed to take into consideration? Point 1, did they find out that whether some of the containers were an issue of litigation? Because the PDS arbitration is still ongoing and we are waiting for the results. Point 2, LNR investigation, those are containers that were brought in when our former president's tenure started, Nanado's tenure started.
2017.
Yes,
January.
Those containers were brought in just before the elections. And they were a bone of contention because they were not inspected before they came in. It had a whole lot of issue, and Yoko was investigating it. So ECG couldn't take custody of it because the moment you take custody, you are liable to pay for it. Why are all of these tiny things missing in such a delicate and important report?
You raise some very interesting points.
Can they tell us, when they talk about over procurement, can they tell us how many of those containers and the PDS will form this particular conversation? Was that said there?
So there are a number of issues. You know what? Let's take a step back. Walk us through the processes of procurement when you were there.
You see, everybody thinks ECG is this procurement issue. Why don't we just settle this procurement issue once and for all?
Well, because
I want me to talk about procurement issue. Every platform I've got to talk Have you seen the Attorney General's opinion on ECG?
I have, and it suggests that ECG is a limited liability company with government having the majority of shares, and therefore it is treated as a quasi-private entity. Therefore, it shall not be subject to PPA regulations. I have a problem with that. Now, help me understand that.
You have a problem. Pause. The only person that can solve this problem, you and I, we are street folk.
Yeah, lawyer.
Don't add it. No, we are street folk. No, let's not differentiate. I don't want it to turn into an academic exercise.
No, but I think it's important for our audience.
Okay.
To appreciate some of these things, because when I heard this,
before you even go that far, let me point out something to you. 2014, 2015, 2016. You know the current energy minister was a board member of ECG, right?
Yeah.
You know, they wrote seeking the same clarity as to whether ECG's revenue generated falls under an entity that should be sent to PPA, that should be subject to PPA.
When he was a member of the board.
So, if this has been a running issue, my luck was by the time I came into the chair, it was a settled conversation, in my opinion, that the Attorney General had written an opinion. And some people's school of thought was that whether the opinion, ECG was copied on the opinion or ECG wasn't copied on the opinion, but the truth of the matter is this: listen, when a judgment or an opinion of the principal attorney of the land, that's the person who, if you've committed any wrong, has to go and prosecute you. If that person is saying that the thing that people are saying on the streets is not wrong, are you getting my point? How then will that same person be able to go to the same courtroom to prosecute you on the thing that they believe strongly is not wrong? Again, it is a settled thing in law. There are Supreme Court decisions, there are Court of Appeal decisions to that effect.
Well, so that clears the procurement matter. So you are allowed to make your own rules.
No, you are not. You are not.
Okay.
You prepare your procurement manual for the year.
Okay.
You submit it to the board for approval. After the board approves approves the procurement manual, that is what you use. That is supposed to be your guide.
Okay.
It's your policy guide.
Okay.
But then, as Mike Tyson said, you have a plan until you walk into a ring, and then you are hit on the nose. Have you been hit on the nose before? Your eyes start to water. Yeah. You start.
You hear things.
So you have a guideline. You were given a guideline. You walked in. You were slapped. Now the issues are coming at you very fast and thin. Let's not forget, you hear commentary that makes you feel like since the inception of ECG, the only person who's worked there is Dubik. Why? Why is it that such a committee going in there, their first thing is to determine some form of trend analysis? Okay? Why is
over a trend analysis over what period?
But the committee's work was for what period?
2022 to 2024.
Who was managing director?
That was your time, right?
Okay. So what's that supposed to tell me? Why don't you check what the company was doing before, so you can compare it to what was done within that period? Why do you want to take what was done within that period and vilify it? Because for me, it begs the question: would it be wrong for me to feel like it's some form of
Well, you think you're being targeted?
Your words. I was waiting.
No, I'm asking.
I was waiting for you to say it.
No. Is that what you're thinking?
I can feel that way. I have every right to feel that way. Because why was I not called? Will the excuse be because it was an interim? But it says final interim report. So interim. So now we are now going to call him. Well, I am here. If or when I am called, I'll make myself available. It says it's written to NIB. Fine. If or when I'm called, I'll make myself available.
You know, on the summary of the key findings, and I know you don't want to go too much into detail, but I can't help but ask you about this particular one. And I think point 8 of the summary of the key findings in the report says, and I quote, a clearing contract to the tune of 127,650,000 cedis was awarded to a company which was not a registered customs house agent, even though ECG itself is a self-declarant. How is that possible?
I didn't sign those contracts. How do I speak to something that I know of? I don't know of. Do you see? Do you get why I am pained?
So you still hold the opinion that not being given a fair hearing. How do you see that impacting on the work of the committee? I mean, you being pained and all is fine, but what do you make of this report?
It's a report. It carries the weight that whoever gives to it. So if you know, sometimes the lawyers in court say, I'll allow it for what it's worth. So it depends on who picks it up. For example, people in the NDC have picked it up, given it the value that they want to give to it. What can you and I say or do about it? But the value I give to it is that it didn't obey the rules of justice. It created its own courtroom, finished. There are a lot of consistent things that do not even make sense. You know what? At every place I have gone to, I've shied away from speaking to these things. But I'll grant you the opportunity, just so I can punch 1 or 2 or 3. So you just pick any of them in there and then throw at me.
Let's talk about the Wards Bond Limited.
I didn't sign that contract. Mint Logistics, I didn't sign that contract.
So they claim that you unilaterally decided that these arrangements that existed with other companies for clearing goods be changed.
And that's what I'm saying. If I didn't sign it, how could I be the one?
You didn't ask somebody to do it as managing director?
As managing director, I'm the one who's supposed to sign that contract if any of those contracts exist. So that would mean that it will be generated by a memo. It has a process. It will come to me.
For final approval?
Yes, and signature. And I'm saying...
So how...
I found out later one of them was in November. I left on the 25th of what? September. I worked there for 2 years and 4 months. You are quiet.
No, the numbers. So this is something that happened after you had left.
Thank you. I can't speak to something that is not my doing. I can only speak to things that are within my knowledge. And even with that, I must get documents to refer to. What did you have for breakfast on Tuesday?
Moving on swiftly. No, but I also would like to, and I'm sure our audience would like to know this. The Minister of Energy and Green Transition, on the floor of Parliament, said there were 3,000 containers. And then later said there were 2,500 containers. Out of that 2,500 containers, 1,346 of them
let's put it in
apparently
context.
could not.
Let's put it in context.
Okay.
On the 24th of January, after he was sworn in on the 17th, went to the port.
The port, yes.
Did his investigations, gave an interview and said there were 2,500.
That's right. That's already a drop of 500 from what he had said.
No. In March, he went to defend the budget of the energy sector in Parliament. So January to March.
Oh, yeah. January, he said 2.5.
Yeah, March, he said 3K on the floor of Parliament. And then he said that the number 3,000 was given to him at the transition. Up to now, nobody has seen any of the transition documents saying that they are what? 3,000. So I choose not to go with the 3,000 number. I choose not to go with the 25 number because yes, it's politics. It's fine. You know, we need
What number would you go with? How many? I mean, up until when you left.
Up until I left, I didn't know the number. I wouldn't say I knew the number off the top of my head, or even I added it to my handing over notes or anything like that. But let's say I want to go with the 2,400 and change that the committee said were given to them.
Mm-hmm.
My question is, were they giving it to them in a bill of ladings, or it was just a spreadsheet? If it was bills of lading, then that means yes, we are in business because we can find them. Do you get what I mean? If bills of lading were given to them, yes, we can find them.
Because then these are, it's basically a manifest.
Yes.
That shows you where the container originated from, what's supposed to be in it, its value, and which sea freight company carried it to Tema, when it arrived, and where it's been put.
So with that documentation, even when it's given to ECG, it's not given to the managing director. It's sent to the materials and transport depot. It's not something that's received at the head office that you would say the managing director sees it. No, it goes through a lot of processes before finally it comes to the managing director's table.
During your term or tenure as managing director, was there ever a situation where ECG incurred demurrage?
Yes, it was something that was there. I came to meet it.
But what do you think was the reason? Why would you incur demurrage?
Cash flow, opportunity cost, time value of money, the pressing needs of the company during the day. Look, what you face.
But you supply electricity to government entities. The port is owned by government.
Oh, wait, lah.
Okay.
So there were innovative conversations concerning this. So when they write there that there was negligence by management that led to that, it's because, again, they didn't have the right people to speak to, or who did they speak to and lead to that conversation. Because if a manager comes in there and says they were giving us 5 million and then they stopped, as if there was no backup plan or there was nothing happening in the shadows to fix this matter permanently. We had a full conversation with the Ministry of Finance, and the very first approval happened under the former finance minister, who got caught onto the idea of the set-offs, where we told him that government institutions they are not paying. Let's take their bills and set it off against ECG's taxes so that GOG doesn't have to give ECG money. He approved the first one, it went through, we got the system right. There was a second one, which after they approved, will affect all of these things. So which then means that what? Especially what was agreed that especially was the hospitals, the critical hospitals that don't pay because of cash flow issues. Their bills will be put towards these things so that ECG can at every material moment bring out these containers. So if you say negligence just because 5 million was stopped without not looking or hearing the back conversation to find out that even one was approved, you understand, and that it was the second one was big. If you had even heard that, there are people in even Ministry of Finance at the energy desk who knew about this. There are people in the finance directorate of ECG who know about this.
So you think that
I don't think
the demurrage, when you were there, you obviously started doing these things to ensure you had better cash flow, so you didn't have to have goods sitting over there.
Yeah, and then we wanted to find a permanent final solution to it.
But for a strategic organization such as the ECG, could the Ghana Ports and Harbour Authority and GRA not run some sort of a credit system for you so you do not incur demurrage?
We used to have that, but it was stopped for some time. It wasn't renewed.
Okay.
We had written a couple of times to ask for it to be renewed. It hadn't been renewed. All of these are things that should have appeared in this report. Because this same thing also happened to Cocoa Board.
If you just tuned in, it's 9 o'clock. It's the Asasi Breakfast Show, and we're talking to the former managing director of ECG, Mr. Samuel Dubik Mahama. Of course, everybody wants to know the backstory of the ECG missing containers and all the claims made.
I'm telling you, so far as we have bills of lading, we should be able to determine where the containers are.
Well, but there's talk of a cabal that, a lot of collusion going on.
Let's investigate it.
Were you aware of this cabal when you were MD?
I was not aware that there was a cabal. What I was aware of which I responded in writing to the GRA and copied the Chief of Staff, the Interior, the National Security Minister, the Finance Minister, the Energy Minister, the Yoko boss, and all the parties that I felt needed to be put on notice was that ECG containers had been auctioned and had left the port, and people were now knocking on the doors of ECG that ECG should purchase it. And I said I was not going to purchase those products.
No, so wait. Your ECG, while you were MD, ECG containers.
Yeah.
Of course, defaulted demurrage.
Yes.
So it was auctioned.
Yes.
And someone bought it.
Yes.
And then they called to try to sell it to you again.
They called the materials people that we bought this from an auction. You people this we want to sell it to you because you know why? They can't use it anywhere. Those materials, the voltage and what you need to use, you can't use it in your home. You can't use it to wire your home. So when you hear cables and conductors, it's not the old DC wood I know. And you will be.
Well, from what I saw in the photographs recently, a heavyweight.
And you will be.
This whole thing
120 aluminium copper.
No, this whole thing
or 2x25
doesn't make sense to my layman mind. I am thinking the ECG is quasi state owned, right? It's a limited liability company with government having the majority of shares. And GPHA is government entity. GRA is government. Do you not think that government was punishing itself?
If you want to put
literally shooting itself in the foot.
If you want to put it that way, I've said this in other places. I've seen my brother Kwame A+ also put it up on his thing. Will GRA auction a container labeled Ghana Armed Forces?
That I can't answer.
Why can't you answer?
Because I haven't seen it. The same way
when I was ECG MD, I made an offer to the good people of Ghana that Ghana Armed Forces owes us some amount of money. I want to auction it to a debt collector. If you go and collect, if you collect, I'll give 50%. I said I'll give you 50%.
Yeah.
So these were the kind of bills that we wanted to use for the set-offs.
The set-offs to do that. Okay.
So that it doesn't become a cash burden on. And I still would advise the Energy Minister and the Finance Minister and the GRA boss and the current ECG MD to still pursue this kind of approach, because it will actually reduce ECG's losses, especially collection and commercial losses. It will reduce it drastically.
Remove your hat as a former MD of ECG.
Yes, sir.
And I'm going to paint this picture. I started and I want to really get to it. So I'll give you an example. When an imported container remains uncleared at the port for maybe over 60 days, the GRA will seize it and list it for auction. Now, ECG's largest shareholder is government. The custom duties that GRA will collect from ECG, meanwhile the GRA itself is also another government agency, right, will take the money. It will go into the consolidated fund. Same government. Okay. Now, the Ministry of Health, which would need money to buy medications and things and pay doctors and everything, draws its money from the same consolidated fund. The duties that GRA will collect is what feeds this fund. That takes care of the Ministry of Health, for example. Help me make sense of this situation and how we can improve it.
This is what they call, it's just a complete set-off approach. If you use the set-off approach, you can even use the same set-off approach with the IPPs. which was something that we already started in the negotiations. It was a discussion.
Okay.
Nobody is saying that give them a tax waiver. No. What we are saying is acknowledge the tax as received.
Okay.
So that on their balance sheet, it will be seen and as received but used. So it will be seen
gives them wiggle room. There's
and it also gives also gives government's revenue a boost. That we received X amount, and this was X subsidy that we put in, or even in the reverse, they'll say, Ministry of Health, we were supposed to give you 280 million. Your electricity bill was 50 million. So out of your 280, we've paid 50 for you. So we only have to give you what?
Another 100.
That's all.
Okay.
That's all. Or we'll still give you your 280 and we've paid your electricity bill.
Why is this not happening?
You're asking me basic questions that honestly I
So if you get invited by NIB,
I'll go.
You go.
I'll go.
You're not worried about the content of this document that you say did not give you a fair hearing?
I am worried about it, but it has done what it will do. So what was the intention of the people putting it together? And what do they think will happen in the eyes of right-thinking Ghanaians if they put this out without not giving me a fair hearing? Because in this country, you're already pronounced a thief before you enter any room. You look at the comments going around, he's a thief, he's a thief. He's a thief, he's a thief, he's a thief. So what's the worst that they could do now? They've already prejudiced the thinking of everybody. So what's the point?
If NIB never invites you, but this report is out there, are you...
I'm still worried about it because some of us have international... It has an international implication on some of us.
So what are you going to do?
There's supposed to be a conversation to be had, and at the right time I will. But right now we are at the beginning of the matter. For the past 2 to 3 weeks, containers that were not in the custody of ECG has been painted like it is in the custody of ECG and they got lost, or some ECG staff colluded with some people to get it out, to the extent that some people say the former managing director was part of it. So of course I want it to be investigated, and if I am found culpable, I'll take my punishment.
You know, as journalists, we hear a lot of things, and we hear what do you call it, the rumors and stuff in the grapevine. Sometimes we realize that the things we've heard turned out to be true. Sometimes it's just rumors. But have you heard about the collusion between your own former colleagues and the people at the port? Why? I haven't finished asking the question.
You're trying to get me to commit.
To sell.
Beg you, have commitment issues.
to sell ECG properties, i.e. container load of transformers and all sorts of things.
My simple answer to you will be that all I know is that if the goods were with ECG, we'll have a different conversation. But the goods were and still in the custody of, held up within a security zone.
I see.
You know, when we are doing these things, we forget its implications on the broader scheme of things.
Okay.
What do you think, reputational-wise, this is doing to us?
As a nation?
Yeah.
No, well, reputation.
No, because this is a security place. So if you're telling me that 1,003 can get lost, that's why I am of the opinion that so far as there are bills of lading, we can find where they are or who last took custody of, so we can actually hold people responsible.
Because nothing leaves the port without documentation.
Without documentation. So we can actually hold people responsible.
Okay. Well, I've cited a Ministry of Energy letter going to the Director General of the National Investigation Bureau. I thought it was National Intelligence Bureau, but anyway, that's neither here nor there. It says, I refer to the attached report, which is the same report that we've just been going through, constituted the and hereinafter called the committee by the Ministry of Energy and Green Transition to conduct investigations into the status of the estimated 2,500 containers of ECG at the Tema port. The finalization of the investigation of the committee revealed that 1,357 of these containers could not be accounted for, thus alleged missing. I'm just noting something quite interesting. From the report itself, summary of key findings, page 8, item number 9. ECG could not account for at least 1,346 containers. In this letter to the NIB, it says 1,357.
Swati?
No, Akosro by 7.
Oh, okay.
Akosro by 9, rather.
Okay, all right. The assistant biom.
Yeah, 57 and 46. It's actually by 11. So, of these containers could not be accounted for, thus they've been alleged missing. In view of the foregoing, the ministry kindly requests your outfit to commence investigations into the missing containers and furnish the ministry with findings of your investigations. I count on your cooperation. This was done on the 2nd of April.
Yeah. It's a very good step.
Okay, so, but this is a good step that's come up after some of these containers were traced to places.
So at least the investigative bureau will go around, ascertain all of that, and then come up with a final report. There will be some very good work come up, and then at the end of the day, we can put this matter to bed. So for me, I think I look forward to how it's going to be done, and then.
Mr. Dubik Mahama.
Yes, sir.
So let's talk about what you've been doing, life outside of
ECG.
Yeah, ECG. You back to the law firm?
Yeah.
Or you're on a sabbatical?
I took a short sabbatical, but I don't know whether I'll call it even a sabbatical, but because there are still other things to be done. When I left, there are a few very good job offers around. It's funny how you are actually perceived or known from the work you're doing for your country. So there are a few good job offers on the table, but I just decided to relax for a bit. But I was back in the law firm still. My first love is law. As for that one, I can't. It's at my fingertips. So no matter what I do, I always go back there and see what I have to do. But maybe after the middle of this year, we'll see what we the royal we.
We'll see what we will do.
Yeah,
I see. But generally, how are you?
I'm very well. Contrary to other opinions out there, I'm very well. I'm hearty. I am looking forward to bigger and greater things. The good things I can't thank the former government enough, especially the former president, because the exposure that I got from this job, it's mind blowing, and I look forward to exploiting it better. So it's quite disturbing when reports like this come out, because people that are looking to work with you internationally are now asking questions and sending things at you like, hey, I hope you're not implicated in this. Hey, I hope you're, because I saw this, I saw that. Those things are quite disturbing, and it doesn't help when the facts are not fully out there, and then people try to talk and all of that. Because I told you something that I'll speak to a few things in the document for you. Like, for example, there's a comment there about over procurement.
Yeah, you mentioned that.
I said, look, when I took office, and that's what hurts in all of this, because I asked, who did you speak to? And the numbers they brandish around it doesn't really help, because by the time I got into the chair in June of I was in the chair in 13th May 22. Around 6th 7th May 2022, the project management office of ECG came to me with outstanding projects. These were projects that were 30% completed, some 80% completed, and they were all not being able to complete because of lack of materials. So at that point, I said, okay, we are not buying anything now. let's wait because our cash flow is not good. Let's start boldly on this digitization thing. Let's find the money. So I even walked around the whole company, and every staff, this thing rang in their ears. And I must say a big thank you to the staff, because they did work for me. They did show me great love.
Yeah.
And that's how come our revenue figures under my tenure are out of this world. When we went on the revenue exercise and found the money, because I used to tell them, change the conversation, find me my money. And I didn't put it well. It was three things that I used to tell them.
Mm-hmm.
Change the conversation, find me my money. I've forgotten the third one. I'll recollect that and I'll add it. So between 2022 down to 2020, that same year, around August, September, ECG suffered a ransomware attack. If you remember.
Yes.
If you go into the whole committee report, you can see that, and in truth, the most disgruntled people in ECG with me are the ECG ICT. I don't have a problem with them. They can be disgruntled with me because if everybody in the company loves me, that means that I'm a wizard. There was a major tussle because a lot of the numbers didn't balance out.
Okay.
And I had to do what I had to do, and I took strong decisions. And I knew I stepped on a few toes. Little did I know how powerful those toes I was stepping on were, because the IT heads, when I attempted to to move them away from IT, they managed to get the union to stage a what do you call it? A strike.
Interesting.
Saying that they were being victimized. And when you listen to the whole report, you can see that they were the people that felt victimized were the ones that spoke to the committee. So the committee didn't really get the full picture of what was actually done, especially in, let's say, the Haptel deal. For example, they said the Haptel deal wasn't subject to the PPA. It was an unsolicited proposal. There's a whole write-up on how that whole thing happened, because as the board wanted to make sure that every step was documented, how it came to be, what we wanted it to do. They claim in that same report that in August, the source codes were given out, and that's what made the company, the source codes were given out to Yoku, EOCO, and that's how come the company suffered the ransomware attack. It's a lie. It was after the company suffered the ransomware attack in September that EOCO came in with their IT guys to take the, what do you call
source
it?
Code.
The source code. There are things that are visibly missing, and I don't know why. A portion of that same report says there was no value for money audit. That's another blatant lie, because guess what? The board ordered that. There was a company that did that. There's a report, and it's supposed to be with the company secretary and the director legal. Did they speak to them? You talk about over procurement. The PMO 2022, we did less procurement because I had just come in. We had suffered a ransomware attack in September. We were rebuilding the systems to go cashless. In 2023, we actually went cashless. The new app was developed. They keep saying ECG's app was better. It was doing okay. What were they doing? Can they compare that app to the app today and the kind of services we are delivering today? We have to be careful, because from what has happened, I fear the kind of advice that's being given in the background. And if they don't take care, the once beautiful thing that has been built will be torn down just because of people's selfish parochial interests. The PMO came to tell me that all these projects, we have over 722 numbered.
Sorry,
projects.
what's a PMO?
Project Management Office.
Okay, all right.
Their CWIP data analytics came to, and the demographics, blah, blah, blah. Okay, let me just leave that out. Came to tell me that there are 722 electrical network infrastructure projects going on that have stalled.
722.
Yes. This in 2022.
And these are infrastructure projects.
Yes, that are lacking critical supply of equipment and materials, so it has stalled. Civil infrastructure projects, 98. 98 of them are standing. They cannot be completed because customer service related projects, 12. That's 2022.
This was soon after you had arrived.
Yes. Now don't forget, under the first tenure, it was preparing to take ECG into PDS. Took ECG into PDS. Then PDS then came back. Yeah. So no investment or no drive or no push had happened. Now, after a year of being back, Mr. Ajimambudu retired. I found myself at the wrong place, and I finally was pushed to sit in the chair. So now you have come to meet a lot of infrastructure deficits. Did the committee know that there was an infrastructure deficit? And what level of infrastructure deficit it was for them to say there's over procurement? You can't have, let's not treat ECG like a cottage industry when it's actually one of the biggest. ECG's monthly revenue can be likened to what you call it, MTN now. The minister in his own interview said is what? Making what? 1.5 billion. When I came into office, it was 450, 500 million. In, let's say, long months, probably you get about 700. But as we are speaking, the revenue has tripled. 1.5 billion. How did we do it? We changed how we worked. ECG, especially with procurement and its procurement manual, ECG works with something that they call, what do you call it? Engineering pricing. So our pricing is kind of, I say, let's put it well. So the pricing is kind of unique. So what ECG does is that it has a set price for set goods. Whether you like it or not, this is the price. Take it or leave it. You can't negotiate the price. It's developed, it's sent to in the manual, it's sent to the board, it's approved. So when you come, they tell you, okay, this is it. You go fit, do. If you know fit, what? Walk away. So there are people who've taken contracts from ECG and have not been able to do it. They are all lined down, they are pending. So if you come and you say there are 400 or there are 500 contracts, have all of them been executed? As I said to you, I came to see what 722 projects. 722. They predate me. That need critical equipment. And then 98 civil infrastructure projects. And then 12 of customer service. This showed me that the company was not thinking as a commercial entity, but rather was thinking more of an engineering company. So in trying to change its thought and make it much more customer friendly and customer driven, we looked at the customer service angle more. We then told companies who were supplying us meters that we are not doing that supply anymore. Come and open factory. And if you're going to open the factory, we will guarantee you that the materials that you need to install the meters will be made available. When I got to ECG, lack of meters, we have meters, we don't have meters. The data showed that the meter installations on a monthly basis was 2,500. And that the loss reduction project, guess how much, as at the time I was leaving, ECG could install in a month?
3,000?
100,000 meters a month.
Wow.
I didn't go there to just be part. I went there and this loss reduction project, I can bet you top dollar that designing the whole project to its end, the union was part of it. Some staff were part of it. It was something that we all built together. And now they talk about in the report that negligence because we were not thinking of how we could pay. Did they speak to the finance directorate to find out that the board, or speak to the board secretary to find out that the board gave express permission that 10% of our daily revenue should be swept into a particular account to be servicing all of this? Did they check that out? Did they get those documents? It's very easy to give the dog a bad name and hang it. Now the conversation here is the time frame again makes it so uncomfortable. I know there's a whole conversation about privatization going on, privatization. Yeah, it's fine. But the company is now doing 1.5. In that same privatization report, I am hoping to see that there's a cost-benefit analysis saying that government, instead of privatizing, if you can put together X amount to pump into ECG, if you can decide to say, let's say maybe KPMG or PwC should rather recruit for the top brass of ECG, all the directors, or even they should name who the managing director should be. This is how the company's trajectory will go, and it will be cheaper on us than for us to privatize. Because guess what? When under the PwC report that I was being beaten left, right, center, because ECG in a month needs about 500 to 600 million to survive. Salaries alone, I hear now the minister says they should give them only 250 million. Fine, this is prerogative. But if anything happens, what are you going to say? But
we'll call him.
If you privatize, what are you now saying? The person who takes whatever concession or whatever, they can take their money in full, right? Before they bring Nkasi or what is left to what? The center. How long will that take for that person to make his money before ECG starts recouping his money to pay the IPPs? Look, one of the sweetest things, you should look at the CP4 letter and went for PDS.
Okay.
The condition precedent.
Okay. I mean, you mentioned, you said it's all well and good if privatization is happening. Does that mean that you are up for the idea?
I said you should look at it in terms.
So after a CBA.
Yeah, you need to look at it in terms of its implications and how its cost-benefit analysis to the company.
Okay.
Because the whole aim of the company is to generate revenue. What we then decided to do, which also introduced some level of private sector participation, was that, look, the Haftel payment platform, 1. 2, all meter manufacturers were given a zone in Ghana. Manufacture meter. When the revenue goes up, we use that to pay you the next month. So every metering company that has been visited that has a zone in Ghana, and you can check with ECG.
Okay.
The project has been going on. Last I saw a letter circulating that it has been put on hold because ECG doesn't have money. The question is, I don't know. I don't work there anymore. I can't tell. So if these metering companies that have these zones, you are going to stop that, give it to different people to take those zones. If they meter and collect the money, are they supposed to recover their full cost before they send the rest of the money to the center?
Yeah.
If that's the case, then it's going to take a long time, because most of the inputs down the line are all in USD. Meters are priced in dollars, cables are priced in so there are a whole lot of things that need to be considered. That's what I would say from the business aspect.
Okay.
But in fairness, I'll enjoy myself quietly and wait till I'm asked to be spoken to.
Well, I guess they will be, because in one of the recommendations, number 8 or point 8 in the recommendations, it says the ECG management, past and present, whose actions resulted in this mess, should be made to account for the over 1,300 containers not accessed, counted by the technical committee after a proper forensic audit.
So if after the proper forensic audit, the story is not the same, what will they say?
Maybe they'll call you, maybe they won't. So you'll be waiting in your peace.
Yes, so at this juncture, what else can I say? Because looking at some of the things that have gone on there, I can understand why they will get to that kind of conclusion.
Yeah.
Because if you are not given the truth, or you are not given the full picture, or you are given a half-baked picture, you would get to this kind of conclusion. So,
well, we got comments coming in. Abdul Basit Mahama, who is a regular listener of our show and probably not related to you, says, what is really interim final report? The name is contradictory, and I'm not surprised the report appears to be so. And more comments, I think, on our WhatsApp console here. This is Minta from Accra. Says, does Mr. Mahama believe that he has done nothing to warrant the investigation?
as I said here, what have I done? That's why I'm very happy it's with the NIB. Whatever it is that has to come out must come out. I keep saying I have nowhere to go. I'm here. I'm full.
Okay.
I haven't done anything wrong. I went to serve, and if I have to account for my stewardship, I'm here to account for my stewardship.
Great. Well, it's 9:30. It's been a nice long conversation. We've talked everything there is to talk about on this.
Let me drop one last thing about this over procurement thing. You know, out of those 700 projects that were outstanding, I even have a breakdown of how many years.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Shared.
257 of them were between 2 to 3 years.
So they had stalled for 2 to 3 years.
Yes.
Prior to your arrival. So they had started around about 2020 and stalled. Oh no, it would have been 2018.
Yeah.
Yeah. So from 2018 there were projects.
Another 287 that were hanging because they lacked critical materials. 287, yeah. That's 1 to 2 years.
Okay. So around about 2020. 2021.
There's another 157 that were between 3 to 4 years.
Oh, interesting.
And then as for the 5 years and above, the do the calculation.
Oh wow! Right. So of the of the 722, you had projects that were beyond 5 years.
Yes.
Okay. Well, fortunately, that's not a lot of it. It's only 21.
Which one?
Only 21 of them were over 5 years. So we thank God. Okay. But you had stuff that were 3 to 4 years, and some were 2 to 3 years. And so these were things that were critical to ECG's operations when you took over, and therefore accounted for the level of procurement in 2022.
And all of them will say, they are challenged, they are staffed with required project resources such as materials. The same thing. Materials. Behind schedule based on materials. Behind schedule based on materials. So the question is, material shortage. They listed the material shortage here. Let me just help. I'm saying all of this because there are documents lying down that if they had picked up all of these documents, they wouldn't say there's over procurement to the tune of over procurement that in 10 years ECG will not need them. If you talk like that, that means that you've met a disgruntled employee.
Okay.
You haven't met the person who's supposed to be speaking to you, because the person who's supposed to be speaking to you will give you documents. You understand?
So you think that this thing, you know, they spoke to people who...
I'm telling you, especially... Look, I like how the wording was made and sent to... I like how the wording was done and sent to the NIB. Yeah. That they should look into the 1,000 containers. So it means that we are going to try to locate them and find them. That is what we are all looking for. And I've said this. I said I will support the minister, and I want all of us to support the minister for those containers to be identified and retrieved, because they belong to all of us. It's critical for what we intend to do, for all the intensification projects that we have to do, all the expansion projects that we have to do. So I think it's something that needs to be looked at, and we should all assist. Nobody should sit back and say they are not going to help. We should all help.
Okay. You know, some letters were written to the NIB and to the DG at the ports, asking for assistance to have some containers moved to for safekeeping, from what I read, to warehouses belonging to the NIB. what do you make of that? And I noticed something very interesting, that the letter had the Ministry of Transport and the Commissioner General of the GRA in copy, but not the ECG.
The other question you should ask yourself is, why is ECG itself a limited liability company with its own management, with its own communications directorate? Why is the company quiet?
So that's 3 questions. We'll go and look for the answers.
We have to. Why is it quiet?
Well, maybe being a subject of a matter like this.
But so let's you know me, and there's the analogy thing. You go vex again. So right now you are like that. You are an adult. When you are a child, when you go to the hospital with your mother will tell. He says. Now you are an adult. When you go to the hospital with your mother, will you allow your mother to talk?
No.
So right now you are an adult too.
I don't go with her crap.
Right now you are an adult, but still your father is talking for you. You should, right by now, allow the minister to handle other critical things and take charge and speak to the matter and show the whole public what you intend to do. You understand? And not leave it only in the domain of the minister, because it looks like the minister is carrying too much.
Yeah.
Let's assist the minister. That's all I'm saying.
Mr. Samuel Dubik Mahama, it's been great talking to you.
As always.
Thank you for making time to really speak to these issues, and we'll see where it goes.
It'll be a crowded day.
Yeah, indeed.
Yeah.
Enjoy your day and the weekend and your break from.
You don't have to say it again. Don't say it a second time. Do not at all, because I don't plan to do anything other than that.
All right. This is still the Sassy Breakfast Show. We've got more conversations coming your way. Shikanik is the new face and voice of Vroom, and she is in the studio in a moment to have a conversation with us. A quick music break. We'll be back with a whole lot more on the voice of our land.
Like, comment, share, and subscribe.